Today on Time About the Movies, we're wrapping up the month of October by taking a look at the final chapter of Saw, or at least it was supposed to be the final chapter until we got another movie in 2017. Saw the final chapter, aka Saw in 3D. But we also have the conclusion of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, before they eventually make the fourth movie based off of the newer books, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, and we have the introduction to Gareth Edwards in a movie that pretty much got him Godzilla, Monsters. So we'll take a look at these three films. That's coming up right now on Time About the Movies. And welcome to Time About the Movies. Today we're taking a look at the three films of October 29th, 2010. And of course, the biggest new release of the weekend is Saw 3D. And marks the end of an era for Saw, because it's the last film in the series at the time. And essentially it was replaced by Paranormal Activity as the must-see Halloween film franchise. But they tried. They tried to get back in there. But you have a story that follows an author, played by Sean Patrick Flannery, who, after falsely claiming to be a survivor of one of the games perpetrated by the Jigsaw Killer in order to become a local celebrity, he finds himself part of a real game where he must save his wife. Meanwhile, John Kramer's ex-wife, Jill Tuck, informs Internal Affairs that rogue detective Mark Hoffman, Costas Mandalore, is the man responsible for the recent Jigsaw games. It also includes Carrie Elways from the first movie back again. So it was seen at the time as the last installment of the series in general, especially considering that the last two movies had not been the big box office successes, and Paramount saw that opportunity and had a hit with Paranormal Activity the year before and decided to do it with Paranormal Activity 2, and needless to say, they took over, and Saw was just kind of left in the dust at this point. And, to its credit, it's fine, I guess. I mean, the traps overall, it is impressive to now see the traps coming into the real world now, that everybody can see this now. I think that's kind of a cool thing, but unfortunately they don't really do anything with it per se. It just kind of is just, there's that one scene in the trailer where you see the guy getting killed by the one thing is by the machine while everyone's watching around him. But other than that, that's about it. There really is nothing else to this movie that really makes it work in general, and it's not for the lack of trying. I mean, they are trying to do stuff with this, and the 3D does look pretty cool for the most part, but it was just basically time for this series to go, because, like I said before, with every passing movie, it was just getting more and more about what unique kills can they come up with here. And sometimes the kills can be unique here, but it almost becomes self-parody at this point. It really does feel like they literally have nothing else to work with at this point, and we're just literally grasping for straws at what they could do here. I mean, that's why I think they took a long time to get another movie out there, because they said, well, let's wait a couple of years. Let's let the Paranormal Activity people have their fun, and then we'll come back and do the exact same thing we were doing before, and people will love it. And it didn't really work out. The next three films that came out weren't big box office hits. But the last two Saw movies, Saw 3D, Saw X, and also the one before that, Spiral, they weren't actually bad movies. They were actually kind of good. I was actually kind of impressed with Spiral in general, the Chris Rock one. But other than that, though, yeah, it was time for this series to go out, and it kind of goes out on a sour note, and it really isn't as strong as it could have been. The 3D can look pretty cool, and it is shot in 3D, so it isn't like one of those post-production 3D hell things here, like with Piranha 3D and also My Soul to Take, but it works for what it's trying to accomplish. It works if you want to go in there and see this come into the real world, but other than that, though, there's no real reason to watch this film after the first time out. It kind of comes and goes. It's just kind of like, yeah, we're pretty much done with this already, so yeah. Not much more to say about this one here. Mixed opinion, but mostly towards can't really say if it's negative or positive, but just kind of a mixed opinion on Saw 3D. So with that said, let's go ahead and get to some independent releases, and let's get to the third installment of the Millennium Trilogy, the conclusion of the series that have been taking place throughout the course of the year. And that is The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. So in the conclusion of the Millennium Trilogy, Lisbeth Salander, played by Noomi Rapace, is under close supervision in a hospital and is set to face trial for attempted murder on her eventful release. With help from journalist Mikkel Blomkvist, once again played by Michael Nyqvist, and its researchers at Millennium Magazine, she must prove her innocence. In doing this, she plays against powerful enemies and her own past. Now, this was shot around the same time that the last film, The Girl Who Played with Fire, was shot. and that's why they have the same director, Daniel Alfredson, who of course will later go on to direct. I keep thinking he's the director that did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but that's Tomas Alfredson. But it's not the same person. But this is the same director who did the last movie, and the last movie was good, but not great. This one's definitely a little bit of an improvement, but it still doesn't top the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I mean, as a standalone movie, it's good. It's pretty good. But if you watch all three of them together, like I did the first time around, you really do come around to seeing the true enjoyment of all three of these movies, watching them all at the same time, because they do play a very good part, watching them all together at once, after you've read the books, which I read all three of the books when these were coming out, so I had the opportunity to watch these movies in particular, and get acquainted as I was reading the books that they were going along, and I think that helps playing out with this movie. If you're watching them one at a time, I think it really does hurt the ebb and flow of the movie in general, if you're watching them just once at a time. And I think watching all three of them does work out in its favor. Overall, when you watch all three of them together, it makes for a really good epic movie in general. It's a good movie, definitely better than the last one, but not quite as good as the first Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie. And this won't be the last time we'll see Elizabeth and Michael, because the next year David Fincher will give us his version of his American version of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and we'll take a look at that one next year for sure. And that definitely is another great movie in the series. But this one's a good movie, not a great film, but again, it's all about watching them together and watching them as you're reading the books all along. I think that's the most beneficial thing that happens with that movie in particular, if you do it that way. At least to me, that's what I think it helps out. So, the series overall is great. Just watch them all in one continuous loop, and I think you get a great film in the process out of it, if you watch all three of them together. So, that's the Go to Kick the Hornet's Nest. Now, let's take a look at our last one that we have here, and that is Gareth Edwards' Monsters. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the reason why Gareth Edwards became the director of Godzilla and eventually Jurassic World Rebirth. This was his directorial debut, and it's a pretty decent directorial debut if you take a look at it. It takes place after a NASA probe crashed in Mexico, as it says in the trailer, 6 years prior to this, which leads to the sudden appearance of giant tentacled monsters. And it follows a man played by Scoot McNairy, an American photojournalist tasked with escorting his employee's daughter, Whitney Abel, back to the United States by crossing through Mexico's infected zone where the creatures reside. And this is a very low-budget monster movie. This thing was made only for $500,000, and it helps that Gareth Edwards was the cinematographer, the production designer, and the visual effects artist on this. And they did a pretty good job of keeping the budget on this very restrained, but it doesn't quite have that same spark as something like a District 9, like the year before, which is clearly what this movie was trying to be like. And District 9 worked because it took chances with a lot of the budget that it had to work with. And this movie does take chances too, maybe not as many as you would have expected. I think this is a movie that saw what happened with District 9 and thought, well, we could do the same thing with that. And it doesn't quite get there, but it's not a bad movie by any means necessary. I think it is a very solid film for what this guy was able to do. The actors overall are really good. Scoot McNairy has gone on to have a nice little acting career in general. Whitney Abel, I don't think has done a whole lot since this. She might have done a couple of things in general, but it's basically the two of them in this movie. And they're doing a pretty good job with this overall. They're doing a pretty good job of handling this in general. They were married at the time of this movie coming out, and then they got divorced by the end of the decade, I'm seeing here. But it's an interesting film just to see it's just the two of them and all these different creatures. And they did a pretty good job on the visual aspect of it. Again, not quite as good as something like a District 9, but still good enough to recommend. And I think it's definitely a film that you get to see a lot of why studios looked at this and said, we gotta have this guy direct blockbusters, and look at what he's done since then. Godzilla, Rogue One, The Creator, Jurassic World Rebirth. Most of them have been pretty good except for Jurassic World Rebirth, but hey, it's a good start to show what this guy can do as a director as a whole. Definitely one worth checking out. I highly recommend it. Monsters. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, as we'll jump into the holiday movie season next time, as we look at the first 5 films of the holiday season on November 5th, with Will Ferrell starring in the second super-villain animated film of the year after Despicable Me, DreamWorks' Megamind. We have Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis starring in Todd Phillips' follow-up to The Hangover, Due Date, which should be awesome, but it isn't. But we also have Tyler Perry's For Colored Girls, another chance for him to get an Academy Award after success with Precious the year before. We have Fair Game with Naomi Watts and I think Clive Owen. Come on. I was waiting for the poster to upload on Box Office Mojo. Sean Penn, not Clive Owen. But we have that movie, and then we have Danny Boyle's 127 Hours, his follow-up to Slumdog Millionaire with James Franco, and the one that is the much more well-known Trapped Inside of Something movie of 2010 besides Barry. But 5 notable movies to take a look at next time around, and we'll delve into those coming up on the next episode. That'll be tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification button so you get updates on when new videos come out. We also have our playlist right there, and also check out the last episode we did. And don't forget, Time About the Movies Flashback is coming your way next after this gets posted up, so I'll see you for that. And until then, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.